What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA Show, part of the All-City Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mares, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, the Mavs finally looked like themselves last night, so we get to talk about them today.
Yeah, both two games last night. Both, I can honestly say, went how I thought in terms of the final result. I didn't see Dallas, doing it to that extent to the Clippers. I think we all kind of expected Boston to finish that one off. So no major surprises in terms of how the winners played. I think that how the loser in that second game played is a very interesting topic. But overall, Mavericks very impressive last night, Adam. That's you're 100% right. That defense was there that we've seen over the last couple of months, but then more importantly, offensively, Luka. He was different last night, and that was really what created all that separation.
Maybe one thing's connected to the other. I'm going to ask you that on the other side. We're also going to talk about the Celtics eliminating the Heat. Are there any takeaways there? And then Matt Ishbia gave a very strange exit interview. I'm very curious to hear if you liked or hated it. And then later on the show, we're going to ask who won the week and take a look at some breaking news about that Bucks-Pacers series tonight and the Knicks 76ers. But first, All-NBA is sponsored by DraftKings. Stay tuned because you'll hear more about DraftKings and all it has to offer throughout the show. DraftKings, the crown is yours. All right, Legs, let's dive into it. Yep. It was a blowout, 123-93. It wasn't really close after about halftime. Really in that third quarter, Dallas really opened it up, and then it was a blowout by the fourth quarter. I don't know. So you kind of hinted that the 123 and more importantly, Luka Doncic's 35 points was more impressive. But to me, I look at this and I say part of what made Dallas so great after the All-Star break and after the trade deadline was their defense looked like a playoff defense. Last night, for the first time, the Clippers scored just 93 points, and Dallas's defense looked like what you and I hoped it would look like in the playoffs. So that's what stood out to me was the defense, but I'm curious, what stood out most to you?
I think you're right. If I looked at it like technically, what I was going to need to see out of the Mavericks, that defense showing up the way that they did against Paul George and James Harden. And look, some of it's them, and we're going to get into that because I think there's something to be said about your DNA and your track record in these moments. I'm sorry. It's there. It's true, regardless of how guys play leading up to it. Right now, there was a pressurized situation last night because if you lose the game, you go on the road, potentially get closed out. So there's a pressurized situation there for those guys. That's a whole nother topic. But having said that, they were hounding them. Derek Jones was harassing them. Derek Lively was sensational, providing that second line help. Gafford was great. I thought Kyrie's effort was exceptional last night. I texted you this. When I see Kyrie, and look, his numbers weren't typical Kyrie. When we usually talk about Kyrie, he goes off and he electrifies us with his offense, like he did in the previous game with the 40 points, to get them back in that game. I was so interested in his engagement, his stance, getting low at half court, meeting guys, like we're taking on the challenge. He wasn't laying on screens. He was so committed to winning the game. So impressed with that. I thought Luka's effort defensively, very, very good. PJ Washington, man, he was a difference maker as well. So you're right. Technically, defensively, that's what it's got to be for them to make a legitimate run at this whole thing. Certainly to win this series. They did it. But for me, I was so impressed with Luka because, Adam, he's not been himself the first four games offensively. Yeah. He missed 36 three-point shots in the first four games. He missed 62 shots overall. And he's getting the shots he wants, the shots he normally makes. He hasn't been bottled up by this team defensively. Some teams do a better job of Luka than others. Short of blitzing him and making him give it up, Luka's getting what he wants, but he has not been making his jump shot. And I don't think they can win this series or make a legitimate run. Probably won't beat Oklahoma City in the next round if he can't make a good percentage of those step back threes because he takes so many of them and it's such an important shot for him. Last night, he started off the same way, missing shots, but he was doing other things offensively, getting to the rim, getting to mid-range spots for the lean back. Rather than a 25-footer, he was taking a 17-foot lean back, much higher percentage shot. So he adapted his game, and then finally he started making some threes in the second half when they put this game away. That's the best sign for me. That to me is the best thing to come out of that game for the Dallas Mavericks is I think Luka Doncic found his step back three, because it is a massive weapon. It's a difference maker. He gets it off anytime he wants. There's no answer for it. So if he's making a decent percentage of those particularly timely ones, that is the ultimate weapon for that team. That's what I think, for me, was the big takeaway. Luka looked like himself, man. He just looked so confident and sure of himself, carrying himself like a superstar does when they're sure of what's about to happen. And that's exactly what Luka did to them last night. And there's a lot of star power, a lot of Hall of Famers in this game. Luka Doncic was the one that rose above everybody and said, this is how you act when your season's on the line potentially. And that's what Luka did.
I think I have a slightly different perspective on it. I mean, ultimately, I think it's semantics, but I thought Luka was very good. I mean, 2 of 8 from 3. You know, he still shot poorly. And to your point, I think he hits the first one in the third quarter. And there was almost like a, thank God, finally I get one to fall. And then, knocked another one down shortly after. But for me, I thought he was great. And I thought he put the game away. And I feel like it was a, getting over the hump sort of moment. He's been in this little rut in the series, and it felt like a getting over the hump moment. And when he did, the game went from them leading and controlling it to completely putting it away. But I like the point you made earlier. PJ Washington had 2 points last night, 1 of 7 shooting, 0 of 4 from 3. I thought he was great. Kyrie Irving, 14 points. Just 14 points, 1 of 7 from 3. I thought he was phenomenal. And I thought those guys, and this is the thing about Dallas, and this is the thing about the playoffs, you have to win ugly. And I feel like it's almost more inspiring to you as a team when you win, especially if you dominate, and you look at Kyrie's line and you say he was 1 of 7, but he did everything else. That's the foundation for playoff basketball. And I just thought the Mavericks, for the first time in the series, and some of this, look, we're going to talk about the Clippers later on. The Clippers, a really bad performance from Harden and from Paul George. We'll get to that. But I thought that the Mavericks won this game ugly, and then Luka put it away pretty. And that's such a good sign for a great team, because you need to be able to do both.
Agree with it 100%. And I want to clarify something about the three-point shooting. I probably should have pointed out. What I saw, even though the 2 for 8, you mentioned 2 of those were in the second half, and it was the trajectory of his shot, man, the arc of his shot. Every one of the, not everyone, but most of the threes he's taken in this series, including the first half of this game, I can tell watching the game, that's not getting there. It's not getting there. The arc is not enough, and it's going to hit front rim, and it is. Most of those shots are hitting front rim. And look, as a shooter, I just know you go through these different periods of time throughout the season where sometimes, man, it's so precise and perfect when it's coming off that arc, the timing of your release, which is a big, big deal in creating that arc. When you are mistiming your release a little bit from when you jump to when you let go of the ball, and I'm talking fractions of a second, for a shooter, it really matters. It's the difference between shooting the ball just prior to the peak of your jump, which is when you're supposed to release the ball, not at the peak. Because at the peak, gravity's starting to take over and the ball is being pulled away from the rim as you release it. It's prior to the peak. That's when the ball's got to get released, because that's when your greatest momentum is being generated off the floor. It's a tiny fraction of a second, and it's everything to a shooter. And for me, watching Luka through the first 4.5 games of this series, it was just not right. There was something wrong with the trajectory of his shot, and the timing of his release was not there. I think he figured it out in the second half of this game. And I think that's what I'm wondering now will carry forward for him, because sometimes that's all it's going to take, man. A few shots that feel better to carry over into the next game. In between games, he'll have a day. He'll get some shots up. Let's see now if he starts off game 6, kind of the way he closed game 5.
Well, I'm curious for this, Legs, because in game 5 of the Lakers-Nuggets series, Jamal Murray, who's clearly was banged up for most of that series, he's dealing with a calf strain. He said, I had to change my shot. I had to get, dip more on my shot, use more of my quads, because I didn't want to just shoot off my calves. So he had to change and alter and consciously think about changing his shot. You were a great shooter. Did you have to do this ever? Your body's a little off this or that, and it's like, okay, how do I compensate and change something I've done a million times? Now I have to change it to adjust. Have you ever done that?
Completely. After I came back from when I tore 3 ligaments on my knee, my ACL, MCL, PCL at the same time. When I came back from that 9 months later and I started playing, and I was wearing a heavy brace similar to the one Joel Embiid's wearing right now. I was wearing that brace for the rest of the season and most of the following season. And because of the extra weight on my leg, because of I just didn't feel like I had the lift that I had before the injury. You absolutely, I was having a very difficult time understanding, because your body knows through, I don't even know how many shots I took in my life prior to that point. I couldn't even begin to fathom practicing games. Who knows what that number is? But you know what the perfect amount of jumping you're going to do on each shot is. You know what that feels like. So your body, the muscle memory, they're locked in. Those two things, the release on the jump. Well, when all of a sudden you're not jumping as well, or your lower body feels heavier and there's no lift there, you're not getting off the ground as much. Well, the timing of your release is different. And I absolutely struggled with that for the remainder of whatever was left of the season when I came back from the original injury. Then I had a whole off season. And then I came into training camp that next year thinking it was going to be fine. And it wasn't. I was still struggling with that. I finally got back to it and figured it out, but it took a long time to do it. So these guys, same thing. And Luka's dealing with an injury. Jamal Murray's dealing with an injury. Different guys are. It doesn't feel the same when you jump. And your body's wired for certain things. When it's perfect, it's going to automatically react. It's muscle memory. And when it's not, you're now trying to adjust it yourself, and you're altering your mechanics a little bit. So that's an excellent point on your part. And I think it could have something to do with both of these guys.
What you're talking about with your injury is almost a long-term one. Like, you go into the lab and you alter it, and this is my new shot to compensate for the injury. But with Luka and even with Jamal, this is not a long-term change. This is they're
Right.
banged up in ways that it'll go away. And this isn't you have a summer to work on it. It's just like, okay, I need a little more legs, or I need a little more this or that. Or maybe for you, you're saying arc, maybe a little more arc. And I'm just curious to see if those guys can adjust, because I think great players are capable of adjusting in that way and saying, okay, well, I can't do it the way I've done it all season. I'm going to have to adjust in a small way. And how do I do that? Is it going to the rim more? Is it changing the arc or what have you on your shot? But to go back to Kyrie Irving here, because we've given him a lot of love on the show, but I feel like this is a perfect example. One of the things we've said, and a lot of people have said, is Kyrie has not been a distraction this year. He has not been a distraction. I feel like that's selling him short. What you were talking about yesterday, and what I noticed, was he took on a leadership role, a lead by example role. It wasn't not a distraction. He set a tone for how they were going to win that game. And even if you look at him, he only took 14 shots. It wasn't even like he was hunting looks. He was clearly thinking, I have to impact this in a different way. And Kyrie's not a guy that in the past we've said that about. A guy that's, he's going to win it with defense tonight or with effort and hustle plays. And I'm just so impressed by him. And to me, I was worried about our Mavs. I was worried about them, and what we saw last night to me goes, okay, they're showing signs of being made of the right stuff.
His whole entire persona and vibe last night, and really almost pretty much the whole season, but this was such a critical moment in time, man. I like this game, I had like butterflies for this game, because either way, because I'm like, this is the pivotal game in this series, man. And this is the biggest moment of the season for the Dallas Mavericks. And his vibe and persona last night, even on a night when he wasn't getting high volume shots, was all about, this means everything to me. And that is the thing that you want out of Kyrie Irving. And look, I've said it before, he's in a perfect lane. This is his ideal lane. It's so similar to what the lane that he was in next to LeBron James in Cleveland. You got this other dude fully responsible for taking the weight of the world on his shoulders, because they're that good. They want that role. They want to be the guy that scores, distributes. They got the microphone in their face after the games. They've got to answer all the questions. They've got to raise the play of other people. That's a hell of a lot of responsibility. And then you got the guy that's sitting there right next to that can just go ball. And that's what Kyrie was able to do in Cleveland. And he won a championship, and he made the biggest shot in the history of that franchise in doing so. And then, at some point he was kind of like, I think, disillusioned, because he thought, you know what? That's fun and all, but I think I'm better than that. I think I can go carry a team. He went to Boston with a bunch of young guys, asked him to do what LeBron did for those young guys in Cleveland. And Kyrie was kind of like, you know what? This isn't really me, like, to do this. I don't want to have to be elevating these guys. I just want to go play. So it didn't work out. Obviously, Brooklyn was a disaster. So he ends up in Dallas. back in the exact same role that he had
Right.
in Cleveland. It's identical, and it's perfect for Kyrie because I got this superstar that's going to be great every single night. This guy's going to show up so I can have my moments. And some nights I'm going to be sensational, electrifying, and the reason we win. But there's a whole lot of other nights I'm going to supplement what this guy's doing and make sure I'm not a reason we lose. That is what Kyrie is. That's what he is on this team. He's been sensational all year. His attitude, his effort, his energy, his vibe, everything. Nothing off the court to take him away and distract him. And last night, I just was so impressed watching his eyes, how locked in he was in the moment, and how important this was, and how engaged, even though, like I said, 14 shots for a guy that good, it's not a ton of shots. He was okay with it. He still gave you max effort. I was very, very impressed with Kyrie Irving last night.
The last note I have, or really it's a question for you. I think a lot of this series for me is the Gafford-Zubac matchup. How many minutes can you play Gafford in this series? Obviously he got hurt. He got absolutely destroyed early on in the series. Zubac last night was 7 of 8, and I think half of those came in the first 3 minutes. I was watching, you're watching the game. I go, here you go again. Zubac is just putting too much pressure on that Mavs defense, and it's not something I thought coming into the series. But after the first, 5-10 minutes, it dried up for him. And Gafford last night was a positive for just the second time in the series. I don't have any notes on what exactly is going on, but did you see anything different about how they were able to contain and slow down Zubac after those first few minutes?
I thought that was more honestly about what the Clippers just kind of got away from. And I think that the separation in the lead, like when they really were playing from a big deficit, a big hole, Zubac then is going to become an afterthought to them. That's just the way it is. He's great to start out the game, and you're going to him. And if they keep the lead and they're in a good place, he'll probably continue to get touches until Dallas does some sort of adjustment. When they basically got down double digits by the half, and then they got down 15, 18 in the third quarter, it's like a non-entity at that point because they're looking for different things and how to get back in the game. So I don't think it had a lot to do with that. I do have a question for you. I'm curious because the shots he's been making in this series are so similar to the shots that your guy Hartenstein makes. So my question is, we know Hartenstein is your guy, and you got a list of guys. Yeah. Why is Zubac not your guy? Why don't you have a Clippers 40 hanging up somewhere?
I got an answer for you. First of all, I wore number 40, so this should be, it should even doubly resonate with me.
Perfect.
But here's why. My guys, they graduate from being my guys. Like Jalen Williams was my guy, but he's too big now. He's everybody's guy now. Zubac was my guy, I don't know, 6 years ago. He's graduated from the My Guys Academy. That's why. He is great, though, and he has such good touch. I think
it's almost like your analogy is almost like these like you're raising your children.
That's
and then
true.
They go off on their own. They go off on their own. Now they can lift wings. They can fly. Right? Okay, I got it. I hear you.
Then you have to give them away. Yeah, exactly.
I was just curious because I'm watching him hit these little floaters on the baseline and in the middle of the lane last night, and I'm going, that's exactly what Hartenstein's hitting them with in the Philly series. It's amazing to watch. So look, man, I thought best both end of the floor performance by the Mavericks in this series. I thought I saw some good things out of Luka. We've obviously raving about Kyrie. Nobody else had to go off. Oh, I want to bring up one more point, though, about this, Dallas, before we talk about the Clippers. Where would they have been last night without Maxi Kleber? And I've been saying sometimes I wonder why they go back to him as much as they do. Honestly, I do wonder it sometimes. Last night, man, because here's the thing. What was the score at halftime? It was 56-46. They're up 10 at half.
10 points, yeah.
Guess what, man? Kleber hits 4 threes. Kleber doesn't do that in the first half when no one on their team was making a three-point shot. They were 1 for 11 to start the game. If Kleber doesn't do that in the first half, that game tied, down 2, up 2. I think it's got a different feel entirely when you come out of the locker room to start the second half as opposed to down 10. And a lot of that was absolutely because of Kleber. Now, look, he's standing in the corner taking wide open shots. It's fine. That's your role, though. That's what you're paid to do. That's what you're supposed to do. Nobody else can make a shot. And Kleber came in, and I thought, this is what you need in the playoffs. On a given night, somebody's got to give you that unexpected burst. Whoever that is in your rotation, you never know who it's going to be. You hope your stars play great. There's usually a third guy that can fluctuate a little bit, but you hope he's not terrible. You needed something from somebody else. Give me double digits from a guy I'm not expecting it. Kleba absolutely gave him that in the first half last night. And I thought it was a huge storyline that no one's going to really pay attention to because he had 15 points, 5 threes, nothing crazy, but it's the timing of it. They were not making shots when he started making those corner threes, and they get a 10-point lead at half as a result.
I like it. I think Maxi Kleber turns into Moxie Kleber if he hits 5 3-pointers. So I like that one there. If we go,
I called him Moxie. I thought he pronounced his name Moxie. Is it Maxi? I thought it was Moxie.
It's Maxi, but you know what? I think Mavs fans should run with it. If you make 5 threes, you have Moxie. So I think last night it was Moxie Kleber.
Very good.
Let's go to the other side here. Paul George and James Harden. They just beat the allegations in game 4, Legs. They just beat the big game. Bright lights a little too bright. Played phenomenal. Now all you got to do is come home. It's the easy one. Now you come home and you can take control of the series once again. We gave him a bunch of credit. Not yet. Not yet, Ali. Sorry, I gave you a wrong cue. But Paul George and James Harden last night, 2 of 12 from James Harden, 1 of 7 from 3, 4 of 13 from Paul George. And I swear these guys, they're so frustrated. I don't want to just do what everybody does and completely dog on them. But neither one of them had the look in their eye at any point. And this was not a blowout till the third quarter. The first half, there was almost a nonchalance to them, a passivity to them. And you're watching this game going, do they realize it's game 5? 2-2. This is the swing game of the series. There was nothing from that. I couldn't believe it after what we saw from game 4.
Hence the conundrum that is James Harden. All right. And look, Paul George is right there with him. Paul George has also had moments in the postseason where you kind of scratch your head because he's so talented and so good most nights. And then he'll have games when you absolutely have to have it. I don't think his floor is anywhere near the floor of James Harden. And look, people think that I've got this personal thing with James Harden because I beat him up when he has games like this. No, listen, man, go game by game. I've been praising the guy. When credit's due, I give it. I gave it last year when he won 2 games, basically, in that series against Boston. I gave him credit for those. I thought, in fact, game 4 last year, I thought was this single most important moment of James Harden's career, down 2-1, and he dropped 40-plus at home in Philly to get that series to 2-2. When Embiid was hobbled. Didn't have Embiid in game 1, and he dropped 40-plus up in Boston to get that game. I thought those are 2 of the biggest moments of his career. Guys, in the other 5 games, he averaged 11 points a game on 28% shooting. That's what I'm talking about, the floor. The floor for a superstar talent, which he is, can't be what it was last night. He's got the ball too much. He's too important. And by the way, not only does he miss shots, he gets to a point where he stops playing the same way.
That's what I'm saying. Last night, that's what it was.
He doesn't even look the same, like in terms of what he's reading, what he's processing. That's an obvious scoring attack play. You're not doing it. Why? Clearly why? Because he's lost confidence in the moment. And he might deny that. I don't care. People that love James Harden and jump down, like, go ahead, defend it all you want. I know the difference. He's not just missing shots, having an off night. That's the kind of thing that people can forgive. They're not going to rag on you that badly if that happens. When you start playing a different style of basketball completely, and you're one of the most raw scoring talents this league has ever seen, yeah, that's noticeable, and it's impossible to overcome because you got the ball too much unless the other guy goes off. Paul George didn't do that either. So now this is the boat you're in, a 30-point loss when you just stole home court back. And you've got now, let's go home, game 5, go up 3-2. Even if you lose game 6, we got the last one in our place. You did what you had to do in game 4, surviving that Kyrie burst. You got the win. You go home. Your table is set for you. Just show up and play a decent game. And neither one of their star players did. And of course, Kawhi sitting over here in street clothes for the 3rd straight year, watching all of this. So when you add that into the mix, what are they supposed to do? If you're the supporting cast of the LA Clippers, if you're Ty Lue, I don't know how you overcome it. I felt the same way about Mike D'Antoni in Houston when they lost to the San Antonio Spurs in that series, when basically San Antonio had everybody banged up. Kawhi sat, they conceded a game 5. They conceded the game, knowing that they could probably win it in 7 games if they had everybody. And James Harden led the league in scoring, comes out and just doesn't really feel like shooting in the first half. can't overcome it. I felt sorry for Mike D'Antoni. I actually felt for Doc Rivers in the series last year when James Harden played that way throughout the series, particularly in Game 7. And it wasn't just him. Embiid needed to be better. I agree. But Harden is so important because he's such a separator and such a difference maker when he's playing at peak level. And he wasn't last night, clearly. So, it's just added to the list. The series isn't over. Dallas has to get another win. Luka said it after the game last night that, hey, we haven't done anything. We got to get to 4 wins. I completely agree with them. Could the Clippers go back home and win a game? I'm sorry, could they go win one game on the road? Of course, they could go do that. They're good enough. They've got enough talent. Look, you get another performance like that out of Paul George, absolutely. They could win the next 2 games. There's no doubt about it. So Dallas has to finish this off. But this was, to me, more about Dallas, but an awful lot also about the Clippers and about Paul George and James Harden just not showing up when they needed to. Allie, did we lose Adam? Allie, there he is. Okay. I didn't know if you were coming back, buddy. How are you? Glad to have you back. Not getting any audio. Adam's frozen up. I don't know. Allie, are you there? Can you give me some direction here? There you go. All right. So
yes,
it's not my end, right? It's
no,
Adam's
we're
end?
waiting on Adam. We're trying to figure
No
this
problem.
out here.
All right, let's continue. Actually, probably is a good place. Can we take our break now, or do we have to do that read? Because Adam's got the read. I don't have the read. So
yeah, we have to wait for him.
We'll wait for him. All right, let's just put a bow on this then in what we see going forward for Game 6 on Friday night. I think now, and look, this series I knew going in could have gone either way. That's how much talent is in the series. And when you have that much talent, a lot of it's just going to be who comes to the forefront, who sort of shrinks a little bit in the right moment to sway the momentum either way. Both things happened last night because I thought Luka played his best game, and I thought the Clippers stars really struggled. And the thing is, with Dallas, if Luka keeps playing this way the last game or 2, whatever it takes, I think there's a lot more there for them even offensively. They had 123 points last night, but a lot of that, the big point total, I think, came in the last 6 minutes. The game was pretty much over. They took Luka out 4 minutes ago. The game was over. So they got to 123. I don't think they played their best game offensively. I think the totality of both ends, this was their best game. I think there's more there for them offensively, clearly, because of the way Kyrie Irving played. He didn't get a ton of shots. He can be much better. I think he and Luka can both get 30 on the same night. And that could be going forward. But I think this was, I said it going into the game yesterday on the different TV formats that I was on. And with Adam, I said this game last night was the single biggest game in the postseason to this point, because I believe if the Clippers win it, they obviously have to play really well to beat this team. And I think I've already said Dallas, I think, is going to the conference finals. But if the Clippers had won last night going to win the series, that could be the Clippers. And they've got enough talent to be a legitimate challenger to Denver. So does Dallas. That's why I thought this game being 2-2, and we know the odds statistically, the winner of the series when it's 2-2 typically goes on to win the series. And that's why I thought this was the single most important moment we have had in the postseason to this point. And the Dallas Mavericks rose to the occasion, and Luka Doncic played like a superstar, and we've seen him do it in the past. So kudos to Dallas. The series isn't over. Let's see what the response is going to be out of the Clippers. But I don't think Luka Doncic is going to allow this team to go back home and lose when they've fought so hard to reestablish control of this series, which is what they did last night. So I think Dallas will go home and take care of business, but they got to go play the game. And Dallas is in the driver's seat now, clearly. It's theirs to lose. They're going home. If their defense plays with as much urgency as they did in Game 5, Dallas will end this thing in 6 games. You there, Adam?
Yeah, I'm coming. All right, I got it. Sorry about that. Did you go into Heat already?
I didn't, because I thought we had to take a break and do a read, so I decided to put a bow on the Dallas Clippers series.
Smart. There you go. All right, Allie, let's take a break. We'll regroup on the other side when we come back together and talk about the Miami Heat. We'll also talk about Matt Ishbia. I'm so excited to get to the Suns part of this and talk about them on the other side. First, though, we have a new partner here. Let's tell you, get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they've got They've got navigators or aviators. That's what I wear. Pretty much anything, athletic styled ones, anything you want. And right now, exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out the best deal of the season. If you head to shadyrays.com and use code AC35, you get 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Again, shadyrays.com with the code AC35. Also want to tell you about DraftKings Sportsbook, our presenting sponsor today. You know that the preseason is over, the regular season is over, the play-in is over, and even round 1 is almost over. So from round 2 on, you can get on the action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You can bet on odds boosts. Almost every single game, they've got 4 or 5 different odds boosts. So it'll be like Nuggets to win, Jokic triple-double, and they'll boost the odds up for you. They've also got live in-game betting. So if you're late to it, but you still want to put some action down, or same-game parlays, all of that and more on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code ALLNBA. New customers bet $5 and they get $200 instantly in bonus bets, whether you win or lose your bet. That's code ALLNBA, ALLNBA, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. Legs, thanks for holding down the fort, man.
Hey, man.
Let's get in now.
Listen. Listen. You know, you're the point guard, I'm the shooter, but listen, I can handle the ball too now. I can make some plays for people, right? I can run some ball screen if I need to, but I'm primarily a scorer. And I get set up by you. So that's important at your back.
You had to ISO a little bit right there. I'm going to be like Willis Reed limping out of the tunnel now, coming back, give you a little inspiration. All right, let's talk about this Heat Celtics one very briefly, because I don't know if there's a whole lot of notes. Celtics dropped game 2, and we asked, is it here we go again with the Miami Heat? Officially, no. That is not. This was going to be a short series, 119-84, as the Celtics put the Heat away. The Heat were outclassed the entire time. The Celtics bounced back from that game too. If we just put a bow on this series, the Thunder and the Celtics, to me, I don't want to take anything away from them, but their real playoff starts now in round 2, where I'm going to have real takeaways for them. But maybe that's unfair. Maybe you saw something from Boston in round 1 that you think is noteworthy.
Here's one thing that came out of this series for sure. And I don't know how long this is going to continue, because it's not really typical of what Derek White has been really throughout his career, but particularly since he got to Boston. If Derek White is shooting the ball with this kind of confidence, because he's going to get looks. When you play with Tatum and Brown and they have a number of guys that they do on the floor at any time that can shoot the basketball, and the way they spread you out and the way they share the ball, he's going to get looks. I think Derek White was more aggressive in the last 2 games, anticipating his next shot, than any time I've ever seen Derek White play. And you and I both are huge Derek White fans. He's one of the biggest. It's funny because I used this line last night. I said he went from being an X factor, which I think he is all the time, to a factor. Yeah. Like, take the X out, because his confidence level right now is through the roof. And that is a whole nother dimension for the Boston Celtics, particularly if you're missing Kristaps Porzingis. And, he was 20 points a game in the regular season you got out of Porzingis. So Derek White, I think, and look, like I said, who knows how long that will ultimately continue? Is he going to continue that against either Cleveland or Orlando? I don't know. Those are 2 very good defensive teams. but you can't stop everything with Boston. There are certain things that are higher on your priority list than worried about Derek White's three-point shooting. That's just the way it is. And so if he continues to stay this aggressive and stay this hot, and it doesn't have to be every game, but overall within a series, if Derek White is having 3 or 4 of these games where he's making 5, 6, 7 threes, how are you supposed to beat them then? Even without Porzingis, I think they can win the East without Porzingis. If Derek White's playing like this, they're gonna win the Eastern Conference even without him. Finals would be a whole different animal. We'll get there down the road maybe at some point. But for me, no, look, this was business-like, workman-like. Miami does not have enough. This is an absolute inept offensive team without Jimmy Butler and Rozier. They just don't have enough. They've got heart. They're well coached. That's not enough against the Boston Celtics. And I love what Boston did after they lost game 2, Adam. We went down there in game 3, and they didn't just win the game. They smacked them, and they reestablished control immediately before this rebellion got out of control. They squashed it right there in its place. Then, of course, they won game 4, and then they did what they're supposed to. Come home. Don't win this game by 4 or a buzzer beater. You win a game by 30. That's what you do if you're the Celtics, and you just won 64 games, and they did it. So this series was all about Boston, very little to do with Miami. And the one big takeaway for me, something different, it's Derek White and his aggressiveness with his offense right now. I haven't seen it before out of him.
Well, the Miami Heat made 20 fewer three-pointers in game 5 than they did in game 2, and that's obviously part of it, right? I thought that Boston conceded those in game 2 quite a bit, and obviously realized they had to adjust after that. And once the adjustment was made, it was a blowout. I'll tell you what, though, I love your Derek White perspective, and this is the thing about the Celtics. They have such a balanced roster with all 5 guys being great players that the pecking order can be confusing. So you have Tatum and Brown. Everybody knows that's 1, 2, but who's 3 behind that? Like who's the most important guy? And for a team like Boston, it can shift game by game, series by series. I thought in the middle portion of the year, when Boston looked their absolute best, around December, January, Derek White was a bigger part than he was in the other portions of the season. Now, they never looked bad. They looked good all year long. But I've always said, I don't know if Derek White's the 3rd best player, but he might be the 3rd most important player on their roster. And these last couple of games, he played like it. They played like it, and sort of giving and moving those scales a little bit more in his direction. And I'm curious to see if that trend continues going forward. If Porzingis is hurt, it becomes a little bit easier. But as you get deeper into this, the games get a little tighter. I'm just so curious to see if Derek White is as aggressive and if the team is as aggressive playing through him as they were in these last 2 games.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great question. It's going to be a whole nother challenge in the next round. You said it. I love that summation. The playoffs for those 2 teams in particular starts now. And that doesn't mean you can't have takeaways from the way that they played. It'd be very impressive what Oklahoma City did in that series of New Orleans. And, both teams missing, obviously, big stars, key components to their offense with Zion and Jimmy Butler being out. But doesn't matter. You can play a clean game and show like how refined you are as a team, even when you're playing a wounded opponent, an inferior opponent, as they both were. Both of them had very clean performances in the first round. Now, significantly more difficult challenge. Whether that's Boston, and who knows? I think Cleveland's going to win that series, but it could be Orlando. Who knows? One of those 2 teams are both really, really good defensively. And then, obviously, Oklahoma City's either going to get Dallas or the Clippers, probably Dallas. And you know how I feel about them. That's going to be one of the best series this entire postseason, just like Minnesota Lakers. If we got that 4 in the Final 4 in the Western Conference, it doesn't get better than those 2 series, man. You're going to have potentially 2 7-gamers. That's how tough I think those series are going to be for both of the top seeds.
100%. I think what we're going to get, and the next round is going to be incredible because of it. One of my favorite stories out of yesterday. Exit interviews are always interesting, especially when a team disappoints. The Phoenix Suns are that team. They disappointed this year. We saw the exit interview from the players. Then you usually get the coach in the front office. What you don't always get is the owner coming down. But Matt Ishbia is no typical owner. He wanted to hold a press conference yesterday, and I think, Legs, the idea of him holding a press conference yesterday was to show strength, to show confidence, to say, hey, I know things didn't go well to this time around, but we can do this. That was at least what I think the messaging was. But here's what the actual messaging was. He says, I feel like the narrative around here is that the house is burning. It's incorrect. And then he says, let's be real. Ask the other 29 GMs in the NBA. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our team and our draft picks as is. The house is not on fire. We're in great position. It's not hard to fix. We have enough talent to win a championship. I understand trying to show strength, but you just got swept. You have one of the most expensive payrolls the NBA's seen, and you just got swept by this Minnesota Timberwolves. To me, this feels like Matt Ishbia not having his finger on the pulse of the PR that is required in the NBA and sending this message to me. Just it was so hollow, and I feel like everybody listening to it was hollow. But I don't know. Maybe you saw it differently.
Matt Ishbia also said, the Phoenix Suns are great. We're in great shape. Okay, that's the one that kind of jumped out at me. And here's the analogy I used. I used this earlier today on TV. Some people in the pod might have seen it. And I'm going to use it again because I think it's the most perfect analogy of all to describe this. What he said would be similar to a survivor from the Titanic saying that's the best cruise they've ever been on in their life.
No notes. No notes. Perfect.
That's exactly what he's saying. Like, are you going to believe me or your lying eyes? Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we just watched. Listen, man, what are you talking about? Look, you're right in terms of, that's a lot of talent on the top of that roster. And there's a lot of teams in this league that don't have that. There's no doubt about it. So what exactly happened? You just got swept by a young team with some vets mixed in. Don't get me, it's not totally young, like Oklahoma City. It's not like that. But a young star, emerging superstar, a couple other young key pieces, and then a couple vets. Nice mixture there. But with zero collective winning experience in the postseason, right? This is the first time that they've had expectations, and they swept you. And it was even more than a sweep, man. It was just like the emphatic plays that took place. It felt like there was messaging that was being sent, right? Like the young guy looking at the old guy on the playground in a pickup setting and saying, man, go on, take your old cell phone out of here, man. Like, we got this now. And that was what it felt like. And so you can say all you want, hey, we're great and we're just going to tweak a few things. I mean, I agree there's got to be roster changes, but I don't think there's anything wrong with saying this was a disappointing result based on what we expected this year. But this is not what some people are going to call it, which is an abject failure across the board. And here's why. Didn't have to take place this year. We are going to keep this core group together, the top guys, and we are going to figure out how to max out who we are. And if we get this done while they're together, then this stuff's not going to matter as much. And that's our goal, to bring a championship to Phoenix, the first one we've ever had. That's when we will be judged, when this group is broken up, if that ever happens. But while they're still together and they're still grinding at this, it's still there are unwritten chapters with this group. There's nothing wrong with saying that. That's realistic. Right. That's honest. People are going, okay, you saw what we saw. Okay, good. But you still have hope for the future. And even James Jones saying, we're going to do something with Kevin Durant and bring out the best version of him for the first time in his career. Yeah. Nobody's been able to unlock Kevin Durant. We're going to be the first team to do that. James Jones said that verbatim. And I'm going, wait a second. Wait. The guy was an MVP. The guy was two-time champion, two-time finals MVP. No, I don't think you're going to bring out something we've never seen before. In fact, the best version of Durant for me still is going to be Oklahoma City version of Durant. That's the best it will be. At his age, you're not going to see something different out of Durant. He's still a great player, but those great, great nights that you can't overcome by opponents are fewer and far between. We both know that. That's not going to change. So I don't know what James Jones was talking about either. And I like both of these guys, but come on now. Let's inject a little bit of reality into the conversation. This was incredibly disappointing. The way their regular season went, and certainly what happened to them in 4 straight games by the Minnesota Timberwolves.
So here's the Lakers won a championship and they went to a Western Conference Finals. Every other year for them was very disappointing. And even the conference finals year, they were a lower seed and they go all the way in. That's what you're talking about with the Suns seed, the Suns team, which is they've had 2 disappointing years now in a row. But if they get 1 year out of that, it washes away everything else, or at least puts a different perspective on it of, okay, you won a title. Overall, the team underperformed, but 1 year they reached the apex. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Yes. Can you get a title? And that's what you're talking about. And I think that was the messaging that the Suns, they got together. They said, we're going to go talk to the media. This is the messaging that we want to project about how we view this. And again, that would be fair. But what I think they don't understand is the hollowness, the arrogance of this roster. And when you watch the players out there, there's the clip that went viral afterwards of Devin Booker saying, I don't know how anybody's going to guard us. Nobody's going to be able to guard us. And it's just this thing of, hey, man, it's still basketball. It's still hard. You still have to come together. There was an arrogance to it. And I think that is the thing is the messaging could have been fair, but there's that underlying arrogance that's coming from the top down, coming from Ishbia, who right away came out and did the press tour when he bought the team, and he takes the ball from Jokic, and he's in front of everybody. He's just loud. There's an arrogance there, and you go, oh, the team mimics the ownership group. It's all the same thing from the top down of this team that doesn't seem to understand or have the healthy respect for the task that's in front of them. And that's why I think it sounded so cringy. It wasn't what he said, but it was the delivery, and it was the arrogance behind all of it.
By the way, I got news for you too. That statement that he made, that 29 other teams would trade places with our roster, that's not true. I can start listing teams that wouldn't do that. I know Denver wouldn't. I know Boston wouldn't. Oklahoma City
would not.
That's 3 right off the bat. Dallas wouldn't, I don't think, right now. So that's a reach. Now there's a lot of teams in this league. Yeah, absolutely. You kill. But here's my question to you, Adam. Last thing on this: if you're an owner and you come out and you say that, you're basically saying, "Are you kidding me? Look at this roster. Who wouldn't kill for this roster?" And you got swept in the first round. Are you making an indictment against the coach? Because what's the problem then? What's the problem? Something didn't work there. And I'm not putting this at Frank Vogel's lap. I like what Charles actually said last night. Charles Barkley had some words on this topic last night. I kind of agree with him. Darvin Ham, Frank Vogel, they was going to make these guys, the fall guys, the sacrificial lambs for all this. No. These pieces have to fit better. They got to figure out a way to play better together. They need a point guard. They need longer wings that can defend. They need some guys that put some hard hats on and get into you, because there's a toughness about every one of these teams we talk about that potentially can make a deep run and win it. There is a toughness component to their roster and the way that they play mentally and physically that the Suns lack. And so there's things that need to change on this roster in order for people to take you seriously, that you're really in the mix. This isn't about Frank Vogel, man. And look, that's the nature of this league now. You get together, you got a window about this big to go win it when you put stars together, and then we're going to move on to the next guy. I understand the nature of it. I'm just saying I agree with Charles Barkley, what he said last night. I'm not putting this on Darvin Ham and Frank Vogel.
I'm not either. And I will say I don't have a lot of faith that the Suns are going to figure this out based on what we saw yesterday, because like I said, these things can be cultural, and they did not show an awareness to me of that cultural deficiency that they seem to have. Every week, at the end of the week, we ask who won the week. This segment, of course, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code ALLNBA when you sign up. Now, typically we'll do this on Friday, but because I'm out tomorrow, we're going to do it a day early. But you know what, Legs? We have some good nominees nonetheless. Let's get to them. Jamal Murray. How about a series winner, Legs? How's that for a good week? A walk-off bucket to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. Did not have a great series overall, shooting-wise, but 2-game winners in one series. That's a pretty good week. Anthony Edwards had a 40-point game and led the Timberwolves to their first ever sweep, sweeping those very Phoenix Suns we just talked about. Outplayed Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Tyrese Maxey had 46 points and saved the 76ers season with 2 threes, one of them of the logo variety. And then Chris Middleton, talk about a guy shining, stepping into the spotlight and shining. 32 points per game. He had a 40-piece the other night. He's looked like a superstar, carrying that shorthanded Milwaukee Bucks team. So those four great nominees from this week, Legs. Who are you going with?
This has to be Tyrese Maxey. And
has to be.
You give me candidates every week, and sometimes I pick from the candidates. Sometimes I'll come up with one on my own. I knew we were doing the segment today, so I already had Maxey in my head. And the reason is, one, that's been the most compelling, dramatic series so far in the first round. There's no question. There's all
great
kinds
series
of subplots to that series, and the proximity of the two cities, and the disdain that the two fan bases have for each other. It's tremendous, man. You can't ask for more storylines than that one has. But here's the deal. Tyrese Maxey with a pull-up 35-foot shot basically staved off the end of their season. Their season's over if Tyrese Maxey doesn't come up with 7 points in the last 30 seconds of that game. And yet here they are. They're playing, and I think are going to win Game 6. And I think this is going to be forced to a Game 7 in Madison Square Garden. And look, who knows? Who knows how that would go? But here's the one thing. I've been saying this, Adam, I've been saying this all year to you, all year. Joel Embiid, look, we know he's banged up, and he was terrible the other night offensively, man. His ball security was like, it was actually hard to even fathom.
Even in Game 5, man. If they lost that game, Maxey saved Joel Embiid, because that would have been a whole offseason.
Yes. He staved off. I said he staved off the end of their season. You know what else? He gave at least a 48-hour reprieve to Joel Embiid getting crushed by the Philadelphia fan base and Philadelphia media. That's what he did also. Now, look, he might still get crushed depending what happens tonight, what happens in Game 7. He might still. But Maxey, for the time being, put it off. And I've been saying to you all year, this is the co-star that Joel Embiid is needed. This is the guy, because it is obvious Tyrese Maxey doesn't blink. Tyrese Maxey has nerve, and he is confident, and he's going to show up when you need him to be there. And there was a great audio clip, man. Did you see the audio clip of him? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. It was late in the game. He's standing at chest to chest with Embiid, and it was caught on the mic, and he's hitting him in the chest. And he's saying, "I got you, man. I got you." Did you ever hear Ben Simmons say, "I got you"? Did you ever hear James Harden say, "I got you" to him?
Come on, man.
No. Are you kidding me? They were saying, "Hey, man, you got me? I hope you got me." Tyrese Maxey's like, "Hey, man, I got you." Do you have any idea like how much that means like to Embiid in the moment? So it has to be Maxey. The series has been great. He's been great. Their season would have been over, and it gives us at least one more game of incredible drama and theater that's about to take place in Philadelphia tomorrow night.
Tonight, actually, Thursday night here.
Tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna get it. You'll be talking about this one tomorrow with Will Gottlieb of our CHGO Bulls podcast. Should be a great show tomorrow, because tonight Bucks Pacers, but we'll start with this one, Knicks 76ers. So you seem to think it has to be Maxey tonight, which I'm almost surprised. Look, I expect him to be great, but Embiid, to me, the deeper you go into the series, they've won a couple games now with Embiid not necessarily coming through in the clutch. They've lost a couple games with him being a little shaky. He's had a good series, but most of that's come in the first half. Tonight, to me, I just don't see a way. Even at home, I don't see the way that Philadelphia wins this one unless he comes through from them in the second half. That's my prediction. What about you?
I first of all, listen, I completely agree. We were talking about who won the week. I said Maxey.
Sure.
They're not winning this series unless Joel Embiid is dominant and takes care of the ball. Now, look, he had a 50-piece earlier to Game 3 and earlier in the series. You don't have to do that. But I'm talking about get back to your wheelhouse, winning the one-on-ones from the elbows and the top of the key the way you can, unlike any other player with your mid-range jump shooting. Draw fouls. Be present if this game is tight late, because he was not in Game 4. He was not a factor for that team down the stretch of that game at all. He has to be very, very good to great. And most importantly, I think he has to be included and involved if this game's tight in the fourth quarter, which I think it will be. Why wouldn't it be? The numbers on the series, Philadelphia has 2 more points total in this series than the Knicks. That's how close this is going to be. So he has to be, I agree with you, Adam, his imprint's got to be all over this game. They won't survive another game in this series if Joel Embiid looks the way that he did the other night in Game 5.
You're from the area. Is Philly going to show out tonight? Because that was a storyline in Game 4. The Knicks Knicks fans had taken over that arena. There have been some stories now about different people trying to help out to make sure it's Sixers fans in there. But what do you expect tonight?
Well, look, Josh Harris, it's out there that Josh Harris, is out there buying up all the tickets he can, 2,000 of them by all accounts, to take care of some of that lower bowl activity we've been watching with the Knicks fans all over the place. That's been a big storyline in this series. So Josh Harris has bought those seats up, apparently giving them out is what the rumor is, to first responders, military.
That's cool.
I think that's the most awesome thing I've ever heard, right? You talk about a great place. First of all, those people deserve something like that. But secondly, you're addressing the problem. My question was, when I heard that, Josh Harris is now part of the ownership group with the Washington Commanders. And I'm saying, okay, great, because now you got to keep all the damn Eagles fans out of FedEx Field. That's what I'm expecting as a season ticket holder. If you're going to do this, start buying up tickets in your home building and handing them out to the home crowd. I'm all for it, because I get tired when I go as a Commanders fan to watch us play the Eagles at home and it looks like you are in Philadelphia. The lower bowl is all green. I'm tired of it. That's what this is addressing, and let's see if it works, man. Listen, so much has been made of this. You have no idea the damage to the pride of the Philadelphia 76ers fan base. I expect this to be the most raucous, rowdy crowd that Joel Embiid has ever played in front of. That's what he's about to get in Game 6.
You are, I think, a little higher on the Celtics' certainty of making the finals, and I think for good reason. The Celtics have looked like a really good, a phenomenal team. But I look at it and I say the Knicks and the Sixers have a puncher's chance. If Porzingis isn't back or if he's banged up, they really have a great chance. And I look at this one and think, if you're a 76ers fan, you have to look at tonight's game and say, there's a chance. It's on the board. Yeah. The path to the finals is never going to be better than it is right now. Get this one, force a Game 7, and let's see where the chips fall. On the other side, the Bucks and the Pacers, this series was all but over, but Chris Middleton said, no, we're going to keep this thing going. And now there's a report that both Giannis and Dame want to try to play tonight. Didn't sound the most confident, they're gearing towards playing. It was more like they're hopeful. We'll see what happens. But Legs, that series was over, and all of a sudden it feels like it's not.
Completely agree. Look, this was the thing I kept saying from the beginning. You got Giannis looming. And by the way, just so we clarify here too, the difference between personality types. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been in street clothes this whole series. Giannis Antetokounmpo is up on every single timeout. He is up, greeting his guys, leading, demonstrative, giving that energy, giving that whatever he can provide. And then you have Kawhi sitting there, just chilling, watching the game. Every single time they show him, he's not interacting with anybody. He's just sitting there. That's his
personality, but yes.
Right. And I'm not trying to crush Kawhi Leonard. What I'm saying is Giannis, every game of this series, they keep showing him so much that it's like, man, this is coming. It's a matter of time. This is around the corner. When is it going to be? So maybe it's finally Game 6. Indiana did what they had to do, Adam. They gave themselves an opportunity at home to end the series. That's what they're going to do. You've got to jump on that opportunity. And look, they've played great against this team when Giannis has been out there. They have not had an answer for them defensively all season. So what will the difference be? Look, Giannis is that kind of guy. He's capable because of the physical nature of his game to dominate you, right? I think Lillard would be a little bit more questionable if he could have that kind of an impact. Bottom line is, if you're the Pacers, you need to be confident. This isn't about Giannis and Lillard. It's about you playing your best, playing to your ceiling in pace and shooting ability and being ready for the moment and guys stepping up. Your best players have to play well and end this series, because if they lose, I don't think they're winning a Game 7.
What if you get the win tonight, no Dame and no Giannis, but they are available for a Game 7? Do you bring them back in that moment?
If the Bucks win without them to force a Game 7?
Yeah, and you get a Game 7. I mean, I guess you have to bring them back if they're healthy, but I'm just saying it feels weird to, if they aren't ready to go in Game 6 and then you get to a Game 7, bringing back two most important players completely changes your team, and it'd be such a wild card going into a single game elimination.
If the Indiana Pacers lose Game 6 at home without Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, if I'm Doc Rivers, if I'm Rick Carlisle, I just say, you know what, guys, we're not even going to play Game 7. You can have it. We don't deserve it. Adam, come on, man. Come on. You're playing a team without those two guys? Are you kidding me? And look, I understand they just did it. They just did it, and they lost. I get that, but it was on the road. And I don't know if exactly they didn't handle it great. I don't know if it was part of it a little bit, knowing you have that in your pocket. We're going home for this game. Was a little bit of that. I don't know. We're going to find out, because if they don't play in game 6, man, you've got to take care of business in your home building and get on to the next round. But to answer your question, if some miracle took place and the Bucks were able to win that game without them and go home for a game 7, if I'm like this, are you ready or aren't you ready? Are you cleared or aren't you cleared? If you're cleared, you're playing. Yes, they take the court and they play in that game without question.
Cue that outro music for us, Allie. Guys, another great one. We thought that tonight there might not be a game, Legs, and instead we have 2 absolutely fantastic games, Bucks Pacers, and then, of course, Knicks 76ers. So tomorrow's show should be an absolute banger of a show. Don't forget, guys, if you want to check out local stuff in the All City Network, DNVR Nuggets podcast is covering the Nuggets, CHGO Bulls covering the Bulls, PHLY Sixers covering the 76ers. They'll have a lot to say tonight. And then, of course, the PHNX Suns, if you want to hear more about Ishbia and his comments and how it was received by the Suns fan base, check that one out. If you're a hockey fan, What Chaos, also on the All City Podcast Network. Legs, I wish I was on tomorrow with you. I'm so jealous, but I'm excited to watch along and see what you have to say about whatever happens tonight.
I will be here. Will Gottlieb and I will do our best to hold down the fort without you, brother. But at least I know we should get 2 great storylines going into tomorrow. I expect both of these games to be great. Milwaukee's not going down without a fight, and I think Philadelphia's going to get this to a game 7.
I think so too. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Throw us a like if you're watching it live. Leave us a comment if you're watching it later. And don't forget to subscribe on the podcast apps that you listen to. So if you missed the show on YouTube, you can always listen to it in your car, wherever you are. Hit that like button on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow.
All city like the mayor.